All right, coming up this Saturday, we'll talk a little bit about this when we introduce JAYLEE to you in just a minute. Saturday, 3 to 5 o'clock, Ybor City, on the Historic Registry of Buildings, Casa de Lala, the Lala family, Ybor City, 19th Street and 5th Avenue. 3 to 5, you'll get a chance to meet JAYLEE in person. There's no phone on the table tonight. You've probably noticed, those of you that watch the show each and every week, no phone tonight, because once we get this conversation going, there's not going to be too much room for any disruption. However, we want you to know that there's room for about 35 in this venue. First 30 of you that show up on Saturday, or call me or send me an email, let me know you're going to be there, will be receiving your choice of either a Tomas of Terra t-shirt, very cool, I've got mine already, or a Tampa Native Show shirt, also very cool, and I wear it just about every day that I'm not on this show. Much to Sally's chagrin, she wonders why I have any more shirts hanging in my closet. So that's 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, one other special treat. For one lucky winner, we have it on good account, there'll be a gift giving of this wonderful book. And again, this is a limited edition. These are just coming off the press now. One lucky will lead a winner on Saturday, 3 to 5. All right, guys, it's a busy time of year, but we got work to do here on the show. We'll talk about the Bucks later, the Lightning who open up tonight at 7:30 in 30 minutes. They drop the puck. And, of course, it's the baseball postseason. We'll talk about that later. Let's bring up that two-shot, and let me introduce to you a special friend now who is joining us all the way from down under, Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. This is Miss JAYLEE Balcch. JAYLEE, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Mario, and it's wonderful to be here with you down here in Tampa.
Isn't Tampa special? I know you haven't had a chance to see much of it yet, and we're going to explore a little bit more this weekend. And we talked a little bit about its history. And JAYLEE, we know that, as we talked today earlier, the spirit of New Orleans, the spirit of Ybor City, these kinds of magical places that kind of talk to us as we walk down the sidewalk, the buildings, the storefronts. I think you're going to get a real good sense of that when you go down there on Saturday. I hope that you get down there early enough so that you can take it in before we have our meetup, because I think it's going to just give you more, uplift you more, and give you more in your spirit so that when you talk to everybody, now you have a sense of the people from that community. Let's back the story up. Tell everybody how you came to be JAYLEE Balcch, where you started. I know where you started, but I want everybody else to know, and how you got to Australia. And then, of course, we'll get around to who Tomas is in a minute. So introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mario. Well, how I came to be JAYLEE Balcch, I'll have to ask my mother and father.
Yes.
That sits with them, first of all. That was my beginning. But I was born and raised in a country which no longer exists, which is Rhodesia, and which a lot of people now know as Zimbabwe. And obviously, after very turbulent times there, my family were forced to leave and to migrate to South Africa. So for about 20 to 25 years of my life, I actually did all my schooling in South Africa, so it became my home. And for the last decade, I've been living in Australia with my husband.
Now, that's not a great leap of faith, because there's a lot of migration between South Africa and Australia.
Yeah.
I guess the culture is very similar. The climate can be very similar. Of course, the language is hard unless you have a trained ear. You hear Australian, or you hear South African, and you think it's Australian, because I had this experience most recently. Lovely couple over at the local Costco here, which is one of those fancy places where you go buy in bulk. If you need toilet paper, you can buy 48 rolls of it at once if you need it. Lovely gentleman. There was a watermelon in our cart. He came and had a comment from my wife, and just as pleasant as could be. So when I heard that, I knew right away it wasn't United Kingdom. And I stuck my foot in it right away, and I said, "Hello, sir, good day." I said, "You from Australia?" And he said, "No, we're from South Africa." And I said, "Damn, that hurt. That was just rude." But he was so lovely, and his wife, and they were here enjoying the beautiful weather as well. So Australia, you got there as an adult.
Yes.
Were you married when you got there?
I was married. I got married in South Africa very quickly. I only knew him for a few weeks, but those few weeks was enough to tell me this is a lifer. And
Wow.
yeah, very quickly.
Talk about intuition, huh?
Yeah, got married and left immediately, and
Okay.
left everything I knew behind.
Embarking on a new life?
Absolutely.
Had you, at that point, had any idea that your life would take you to literature, would take you to writing, would take you to expression, that expressive art form?
Well, I did. You know, growing up as a kid, I wasn't one of those kids that just read books for the sake of reading it. From about 9 years of age, I would read to see how a writer wrote.
Okay.
I loved the different styles, and I would always write my own stories in my head. But it was only really in my early 20s that I started to put pen to paper. And my very first book I ever wrote was over 600 pages. And my mother actually lovingly typed every single word out for me.
Wow.
I've never published that book. It needs far too much work, but I still have it today.
You would always keep that one because that's a direct link and a connection to your mom. People might be wondering, how does this relate to Tampa? How does JAYLEE Balch from Australia, making her North American debut, knowing that you flew in yesterday from Toronto, Canada, how does it relate to Tampa? Well, we feel honored and special that you've chosen Tampa to be your launching point to introduce Tomas of Terra. And you haven't met Tampa yet, really, because you've just gotten here. But Tampa's a very, very special and unique place, as I was alluding to our history earlier today. We go back a few generations here.
Yeah.
And history, we know, is very important to us. It is as it is to you. We touched on that today. Tell us maybe a little more about Tomas. Tell us a little more about the inspiration for Tomas. But tell us a little bit, too, some of those experiences that you had in your life that drew you that way. You talked a little bit to me this morning about that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'd like to rewind to the first beginning part where you said, well, why am I in Tampa?
Right.
Well, you know, this crazy thing happens with me, and I don't know if it's the Holy Spirit or it's just life that moves me, but I find myself arriving in places that seem to be so rich, obviously, with history, with the spirit of the people, culture, history that goes back and spans back generations. But obviously, and because I know this about myself, I love these places that go back to the grassroots, that go deep within the human being, that no matter how much technology comes in and how much people change, the grassroots, that beautiful connectivity between people doesn't ever go. You never ever lose it. So I'm not surprised after talking to you today that I'm finding myself here in Tampa with such a rich history of incredible people. And of course, I always follow the trees, right?
Right.
Now I've heard the oak trees here are outstanding.
They are.
I mean, I'm on my way to San Francisco to go and touch the redwoods.
Of course.
And I really want to touch the oak trees here because one of the main characters in my book is a very wise, sentient oak who has a lot to teach humanity.
You know, the oak tree, and they're everywhere here, is one of those trees that lovingly and cautiously you approach, because some of the oaks have a bark that can be rough on the exterior. And we know because as kids we climbed those trees. So you did so gingerly and carefully. But you know the phrase that they use, and sometimes it's a pejorative, sometimes they use it in a negative sense, tree huggers.
Yeah.
I embrace the fact that I am one, and I think it's really, you're just expressing your naturalism, you know, your naturalist abilities to just connect with everything that comes out of Mother Earth. And oak trees, like redwoods, which have the longevity and the character. I don't know if you've ever seen one, JAYLEE, but have you ever seen a bonsai oak?
I have bonsais.
There you go.
Yeah,
And this is a moment, because we've never discussed this before.
No.
How would I know that about you? But
Yeah.
I'm so drawn to them.
Yeah.
My wife will tease me because I like everything in miniature. I don't know what that says about me, but I'm just drawn to
Me too.
scale models of
Yes.
everything miniature.
Yeah.
I'm not so much the grandiose.
Yeah.
I like things that are replicated small.
Yes.
Small villages, small model cities. And bonsais, to me, are the perfect embodiment of, I mean, you see an oak tree with branches and it's this big.
I know.
And
I
it's
build those.
Oh, that's lovely. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. So the main character in the story,
Right.
Tomas, Tell us about him a little bit.
You know, Thomas is inspired, I suppose, from the deep core of my being, from, I would say, my inner child. There were so many things as a kid that I wished to express, wished to share with everybody and share even with my friends and family around me. And I wanted to tell them that there was a different way. There's a better way to do this, a way that goes beyond normal thinking. And I didn't find the platform to express that as a kid. So I would say that a part of me is reaching forward, even from my childhood, from my inner child, the one that's always having fun. I run at my future with joy. And he comes forward in this to sort of open the eyes of humanity that there is a different way, but it can't be done the way we've always done it, because the way we've always done it has led us to now. We've got to do this differently for our earth, for humanity, for the planet. And so Thomas is about that. He's my inspiration. And I suppose I use him as a character as well because he starts off young, pre-puberty, and so he's still at that place where he's blossoming and getting ready to really find out who he is. And through a series of adventures, he gets to know what being human is, what the old humans did, how that impacted, you know, all the critters, all the trees, all the animals, and even the leaves, everyone. So as we follow Thomas and as we listen to everything that he's taught, so we can self-reflect and go, hang on a moment. There's a deeper story here. This isn't just a story. This isn't just a bedtime story that we fall asleep and forget it exists. This starts to churn within us, in our consciousness, so that we start to ask questions about ourselves. We start to measure ourselves and go, I can be better than who I am. I can be more than who I am. There is another way. And Sir Thomas is that inspiration.
That's lovely. Thomas have any special significance? Because it could have been Mario of Terra, but it doesn't quite have the same alliteration.
No, not really. Thomas is of origin.
Mario from the moon, maybe, but
well,
Jenny from the block. I'm just rambling now. I'm just rambling. Tomas of Terra. Why Thomas?
I've always loved the name.
Okay.
The way I've spelt it is from the Scottish way of writing it, and I come from Scottish origins.
There you go.
And that's about it. It's just I love the name.
Because in Spanish, that's also the way that you would spell Thomas. It's Tomas with an accent over the A. So it's Tomas. So it has application there as well.
Right.
You know, Tomas of Terra, Tomas of Terra. And Terra, of course, tierra.
Terra firma.
Yeah, tierra in Spanish.
Earth.
Earth,
Yeah.
Mother Earth.
Absolutely.
The book has a lot of application. It's not just a wonderful bedtime story, as you said, because really and truthfully, when you look at it and you read it, there's a lot of heft there. There's a lot of depth, breadth. It's not something that, you know, you'll breeze through. You'll read it. It's a good read. It's a fast read. But I found myself going back over a paragraph or going back over a couple of pages just to make sure that that's soaked in, because as the storyline continues to evolve, you want to make sure that you don't lose anything. It's almost like mathematics, and I use that in a sense that mathematics is all a building block. You know, when you start in the second grade, they teach you principles of math. By the time you get to the seventh, you've advanced now. And all of this is setting up what you're going to learn in the 10th.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same with this book. You know, as you, like you said, you start with Thomas when he's prepubescent, and then he comes into his way of, you know, understanding, and then you have to follow his methodology, and you progress with him. But you can always set it down and come back tomorrow, reread that page again and pick it up, kind of double clutch a little bit, re-engage, and continue. And this is not a
skinny book.
Yeah, this is not a skinny book at all. You know, this is one that you might prop your door open with on a windy day because it's 400 plus pages.
Yeah.
But it's not a daunting 400 pages. You know, it's not something that you go, wow, you know, that's War and Peace, and I'm not really excited about reading that. So I would suggest to you that you're going to have a lot of success with this book. And have you had any early reviews? Or what has been the early first push?
Well, I have had, and I've had a few people around the globe that have had a read of it, you know, significant people in educational positions, English educational positions in Canada and Australia and America. The initial push is, I've got to read this again, because the second time I read it, a whole lot more jumps out that I never read it the first time. You know, so that is the push. But this is early days, and There's lots more to come. I finished all 3. There's actually 6 in the series.
There's 6 in the series, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And we talked about that earlier today when I think that art works like that. I think that whether you paint, whether you write songs, whether you write books, when those that are imbued with the gift go into that special place, and this happens, you know, with athletes as well, they call it being in the zone.
Yeah.
When they go to that special place, things just flow. You don't get tired, you don't get sleepy, you don't get hungry, you're just producing. The words come through you, you're just channeling whatever is happening there, you're just the conduit, and here it comes.
Well,
6 books.
Well, I must tell you, I mean, the way my journey started with that, and this is quite the extraordinary part of it, when I first made contact with the realms, with the story and the characters in themselves had such an incredible life of their own, because all of them sort of rushed at me and said, I want to be known on earth. And it's like I said, okay, all right. And I start to write about all these characters. That's why in the beginning, you'll see there's quite a few characters in it.
And you have character development.
Well,
You have got to tell their background, how they got to be. And
they're going, I want to be known. Put me on earth. I want to be known. We must be known on earth. And eventually, I had to say to them, guys, hang on. I've got 6 books. I'll bring you in progressively, but I've also got to create a story.
Sure.
I can't just make a dictionary of characters.
Right. A glossary of terms.
They were quite insistent about we need to be known on earth. Things are changing on earth. Something's coming. And people need to be warned. People need to be prepared. People need to be helped to understand, to tap into a deeper part of themselves so that they can make this launch to this new earth, to this new whatever's coming.
Right.
They can do it right. They can do it with power and authority.
And a sense of direction, a sense of ownership that this is, I know who I am.
And natural.
This is the way, exactly.
Absolutely.
I will tell you this, that these are conversations that a lot of us have and are having more frequently than ever before. I think that, like you, I believe that we are in some funny times right now, some changing times. This is the fastest. I've always looked at it over the last 15, 20 years as sort of a funnel effect. And I don't know if they have these in Australia, but I'm sure they do. Why did I say it like that?
Or like a Venturi.
Well, I was just going to tell you, and I don't know what the Venturi is, but let me tell you, let me explain it to you as I know it, and you tell me if that's what a Venturi is. We have them here in our shopping malls around the holidays, or at least we used to when we were kids. They still do. It's a big yellow funnel, for the lack of a better description, and you drop a penny on one side and a penny on the other side simultaneously, and they start to circle. And of course, gravity starts to draw them down, and you watch them spinning faster.
It's like
and
a
faster.
vortex.
You watch them spinning faster and faster and faster until finally they drop into the big reservoir in the bottom, which is where they collect the pennies because it's for the March of Dimes.
Right.
It's a collection, but it's something for the kids and for the adults. Because to be honest with you, I'm fascinated with it as well.
Right.
And if you do it just right and you drop them at the same time, the 2 pennies will ultimately collide just before they drop into the reservoir. But my point is this: it's a funnel effect. As the funnel draws narrower, we're spinning faster.
Oh, we are.
And I think we're racing right now towards that change. And I get the goosebumps because that's the moment. And I think that maybe Thomas, in a lot of ways, is sort of shining a flashlight or offering us a message saying, hey, guys, have you looked over here?
Right.
Have you thought about this?
From my understanding and my feelings, is that humanity is at a tipping point. We are rushing towards a black hole. And if you've ever watched Starship Enterprise, there's a moment where you get caught up in the magnetics of the black hole and you can't retreat.
Right.
So we're going down towards this black hole. And really what it's doing, it's putting every single person, relationship, every thought, every feeling you have, and it's saying, who are you? And from every movie that you ever see, from everything that you're coming across anywhere out there, the questions continuously being asked, who are you? Because by your thoughts and your feelings and the declaration, the decisions you make, the choices you make, you're determining who you are. And on the other side of this Venturi, on the other side of this funnel, lies who you are waiting for you. So what Thomas does, he gives you a notion. He gives you a feeling and a sense of what's on the other side, of the person you need to be to make it through. It's the seeds of something new that are sitting there. And although we're on this side and we haven't gone through yet, if we can grasp some of those things and bring it into our heart and understand, I am truly blessed and I am truly divinely made and beautiful, then we've already made it through. If we can realize it on this side.
This side.
Yeah.
That's the conduit to get you
Absolutely.
to the other side.
Because you've got to know where you're going. And if you've never been there, how do you know where you're going?
How do you know?
You got to feel it.
And that Venturi that you spoke of, you know, if you get to the point where you're going anyway,
Yeah.
because the retractor beam is engaged and you ain't going back, you better be ready. You better be ready for where you're going and what lies in the next realm, if you want to look at it that way. Now, that all sounds not unique in a sense, because that has application. That you're delving now into the spiritual. You're delving now into the religious. There's an element of that there. I mean, hearing you talk about this, and there's nothing wrong with that, because people need to make their reconciliations the way they need to make their reconciliations, and they need to have understanding the way they're going to have understanding. Not everybody their antennas are not all at the same altitude, at the same level.
Right.
But Thomas, it sounds like, gives you what you need the best way you get it and the way you understand it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
In other words,
yes.
You can be a pauper, or you can be a prince. You can draw from this book.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a bigger endorsement. Listen, that's about it. Ladies and gentlemen, we're done here. We don't have anything else to say, but we've got about 30 minutes to kill in the show. I just want to let you know that that's pretty moving stuff right there, what JAYLEE is offering us. I know that you're chomping at the bit. We have amazing fans, JAYLEE, at home, and right now they're angry at me because I don't have the phone on the table, because they have questions that they want to ask you pertaining to Thomas, pertaining to how you got here, and then they want to probably introduce you to their influences to tell you, oh my goodness, I know a Thomas, or I am a Thomas, or I have a Thomas in my life. Do you understand?
Yes.
So that's fine. We want you to have that experience as well, and I think we'd like for you to have it more so in person, because if you think that JAYLEE's voice, as soft as it is, and as warm as it is, coming across the TV, and it is, it's even more so when you get to sit this close to her and talk to her. There's something very soothing about it. There's something very reassuring about it. But JAYLEE, that's not a surprise or a shock to anybody, because you know you're not just an author. You teach people meditation. You teach people yoga. You have a higher understanding. You've been trained as such. It's not that you just do this because you want to. You actually have been trained to do this. So can you touch a little bit on that as well, on what you do with your motivational speaking? And
Sure.
Please.
Well, I also am a proponent and a person who deeply believes in prayer. So, you know, from the wellspring inside you comes everything out in your world, right? But it must start here. The seed lies here. We certainly do travel the globe, my husband and I. We are motivational speakers. We're inspirational speakers. I've been doing this for a long time. A long time now. And we've learned to observe the human spirit and to understand that within every single person is something truly divine, even if they themselves have never touched it or seen it or felt it. Sometimes people just need to be reminded of what already is within them. So it's not like we're actually even teaching. They know it all anyway. We're just here to remind them of who they are. And that's what we do. You know, and a lot of times when people receive that, they find healing, they find peace, relationships come together. You know, a lot of good things come from that when people are reminded of who they are. So we love it. We travel the world. We're hardly ever at home. And we'll continue to do so, I think, until we take our last breath.
And your travels, as extensive as they've been, and amazing as they've been, with the hiking and the backpacking and the going places and all the things you've done, is there a place on earth that holds a special significance to you, or is there a place on earth where is like a touchstone for you, where you feel like you need to be there? And I'm going to, not to make this comparison, but remember before we went on the air today, I mentioned to you about a dear friend of ours here at the show, Don Barco, is the gentleman who is the proprietor that owns the cigar shop in Ybor City. that we feel like that if we don't go there every so often, there's something missing. We need to go and connect. Not that I put them on the same level or plateau, certainly no. But do you have places in your life that draw you?
Sure, I do. I live in a rainforest. And so I really, really need to be in amongst the trees. So luckily, every time I go home, I actually have that. I need to be on top of a mountain. Top of the mountain is the best place for me in the world, and especially if I see an eagle. And I'm not attracted to going to the water. I'm not attracted to any of those things. But the minute there's a mountain, I'm up it. Doesn't matter where I am, I climb it. So that would be one of them.
Like the big cats.
Yeah.
Like the big cats, right?
Yeah.
Because they have to get to that perch where they can see and they feel safe, and they've got that visual surveying.
Well, that vantage point,
Sure.
and being able to see
Absolutely.
the whole world. You get a glimpse of how majestic and big God or divinity really is, right?
Magic. Mountains are magical. Mountains are magical.
Oh, I believe that.
And for those of us that grew up here, that unfortunately didn't have the experience with the mountains unless you went to them, because the mountains don't come to Muhammad. I know that old saying about that thing, but that doesn't work. You have to go to the mountains. But I will say this, the ocean and the water can be special, and for those of us that grew up here,
Yes.
the ocean calls to us. I was gonna say something there that was pretty. Oh, I know what it was. I want you to. I so much going on in my head right now. I want you to tell our audience a little bit about the story of Diablo, as it relates to you. Could you do that?
Well, yes.
Is that okay?
Sure.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot. That was such a great story, and I know that one too. So I just.
Well, that does touch me in home, and I think every single person who reads my book will very quickly establish the connection I have with nature and animals. So Diablo in the movie is a beautiful leopard who unfortunately was given the wrong name. And some very good friends of ours, a filmmaker and a wonderful animal communicator called Anna, well, they set off to go and see if they could help work with Diablo. Anna communicated beautifully with Diablo. He was really not wanting to have anything to do with humanity or any single person. He had already attacked the owners who had landed up in hospital because of him. And Anna was able to communicate with him, soothe his heart, soothe his soul, soothe his spirit. And he told her, change my name. So they decided to call him Spirit. And it's quite interesting because the minute they called him Spirit, his whole nature, demeanor, and his whole attitude towards humanity and humans changed completely. And the cat came out of his hiding place for the very first time and is really living free and beautiful. So our attitude towards creatures and animals and insects and that, they feel it. They all feel it, even plants, firms. And we don't need science to confirm that.
Right.
They're sentient, right? And if we gave them the respect that they truly deserve, we'll find that they will respond in ways that will bless us and blow our minds.
You told me today, and when I saw that story, when Sally and I saw that story, and I believe it was on National Geographic, I believe it was a special, we were both overcome, you know, because it was, you know, when the owner of the sanctuary that took Diablo in, Spirit, in, was at his wit's end, and he didn't know what else he could do, but Diablo wouldn't have anything to do with him or anyone, and he's the gentleman that ended up in hospital because he was attacked. When you see him talking about the transformation after Anna had communicated with him, he was overcome to the point where he had to stop the recording on film because it meant that much to him, and he had been caring for cats all of his adult life. And that was his business, to take in these animals that had no other place to go. And you mentioned elephants too. And elephants are other creatures, largest land animal. But what a mind, what a spirit, what a sensitivity, huh? You've heard those stories before where elephants that were united as children, as juveniles, were then taken into the circus and done that thing, and then they were separated, and then 30 or 40 years transpired in between their meeting again, and then they end up meeting at an elephant sanctuary, and it's as if they had never been a part.
You know, Maury, I have so many stories of working with animals and the miracles and how open they are, even to the big cats, to the wolves, to anything. So they will come if you're in a place that they know to be peaceful and loving, you know, and they will come to you. They want to reach, they want to be touched by you. You know, if you just have the ears to hear, if you stand with your back against any tree, an oak tree, if you're willing to listen, it has something to tell you and it has something to share with you. But you have to hear correctly.
It's a vibration.
Still the mind and listen beautifully. Yeah.
Wow. How about that, Tampa? Huh? There's room for you to come join us on Saturday. I'm going to be there. I think Sally's going to be there, and probably Becky will be there, and Steve might. Who knows where Steve is? I don't even know where Steve is. He's somewhere. But he might be there on Saturday, too. And one lucky winner is going to come away with this book.
Yeah.
Maybe even autographed. Maybe. I just want to say that it's been a pleasure having you here with us. We're not anywhere near being done, but this has been something that... well, who is this?
Hey everyone, I'm still here. I'm doing fine. Let me bend down a little bit here.
Yeah, look right into that camera right there, Steve Cannell. Don't you cheat and look over
I know.
that monitor.
I did that again, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Tell everybody what you've been doing.
Well, as a resident IT guy, I have to let you know you forgot to bring the hard drive
Oh no!
for tonight's show.
Did you bring it?
I brought it. In fact, I got it right here in my pocket. So I felt compelled to kind of drive over here and bring it to Becky.
You were watching the show at home. Be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
There you
exactly.
were. There you were.
But hey, everyone, good to see y'all. And I'm still here, and like I said, I'm doing great. You heard about a sight out of mind, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm not going to let that happen.
Stevie, thanks for that. Now listen, while you're here, what do you think about this nice lady here?
This is amazing. In fact, I remember seeing that video that she was that JAYLEE was mentioning about Diablo. That was very, very fascinating.
There you go.
Thoroughly enjoyed that. But oh, what a great show tonight. Thank you guys. Doing a
Thank
great
you,
job.
Bubba. Appreciate
Okay.
it. All right,
Bye,
ladies
everyone.
and gentlemen. So you
ya.
see,
I'm
Steve's
here.
right there. He's fine. He's going to be around. For those of you, Ricky T. Parnell, that were wondering what happened to Steve, he's right there. Sorry, JD, I had to get him in on that. We had to bring him in because, all right, for those of you that want to know, Stevie's been sitting here the whole time, mesmerized, just like all of us, listening to everything JAYLEE's been saying and sharing with us the story of her fascinating life, which, you know, that's 4 lifetimes in one so far in experiences. Did we talk about a place? I don't think you said. You said the mountaintop. You said if there's a mountain, you're going up that mountain. And you're lucky because you live in the forest, which is kind of cool sounding, right? I live in the forest. I mean, I live in a house that has a conservation lot behind me. That's not the forest. There are squirrels that run around there, and that's kind of cool. But you actually live in a forest with bigger creatures. Okay. But what place on earth? Let's talk about that.
You know, I've actually been asked that question before.
You have or have not?
I have.
Okay.
And I sat, it was in Franklin, I think, just a stayed over. And I had to contemplate about 10 minutes about that. And I've been in some of the most beautiful places in the world. And I had to go and say, and I knew I had to use judgment to find the one. And eventually I was listening, and this voice said to me, "You know the one." And I said, "Sure, really? That's the one?" And they say, "Yeah, you know it is." So I had to tell the person that it's in here.
What?
That's
Where's my
the
bell?
place.
Where's my bell? I don't have my bell.
So really, I can be anywhere.
That's pretty
but
cool.
inside, that's home. Right?
So, okay, I hear you. Now let me see if I can give that back to you as it goes through this processor. What you're saying is, doesn't matter. The peace comes from within. The beauty comes from within.
It's a self-generated state.
You can be in the middle of the fire, the danger zone. If you can get there and center yourself.
Absolutely.
There you go. Okay. All right. I like that. I'm going to have to work on that, Jeannie, because you know what? When you get in that morning rush hour traffic and you're gripping that wheel at 10 and 2 and you're wondering, where are these people coming from and why are they here? I'm going to remember you and I'm going to think of your words.
And if you don't get it right the first time,
keep trying.
Do it again. And do it again until the day you get it right, because you will never forget that day.
And that's just how it happened with you, I would assume, when you started to develop that innate skill that you have where you're connecting with the animals. Like you said, you told me today, that knife's edge, where you have to, when you approach an animal like a bear,
Right.
a wild bear. We're not talking about Smokey the Bear in the commercial. We're talking about a wild bear. or a wolf, a wild dog, if you will.
Hyena.
A hyena that we know. And I want to see you do your magic on a hippo, because hippos are nasty, okay? They're fierce. People don't realize, they think hippos are cool and they just swim and they got the little ears and the wiggle. They kill more people than crocs do in Africa every year. I read National Geographic, okay? And they can hold their breath for a long time. And they're swimming like crazy swimmers. But how do you get there, JAYLEE? How do you don't just start off going, you know what, I know I can do this. Come here, wolfie, wolfie, wolf, wolf. And then the wolf comes to you. There's got to be a whole progression of things that you go through. And I'm not making light of it. I hope you don't think that I am.
No, not
I'm
at
just
all.
trying to understand, because there's a lot of people out there wondering, how do you do that?
It's taken, it will not happen tomorrow. And it's taken a dedication to still my mind to such a point that there isn't a single thought that I can hold for as long as I want in a space of no thought. So there's no jibber jabber, there's none of the thousand voices, none of the doubt, none of the negativity, anything entering my mind. So when I can get my mind into that place, I suppose the monks or different sort of ontologies around the world will have a different name for it. But when I can bring that into stillness, then my heart stills and hits a rhythm that is very beautiful. And they know that. Animals know that rhythm. It's natural to them.
Sure it is.
So really, it's taking the human condition with all our layers of beliefs and all our thoughts, the negativities we've come with, you know, our stories. You know, when I saw a thing where I read it one day and it really touched me, where they did a survey on great people. And they said, well, what's the one thing that great people have in common? And the only conclusion they could come up with is that all great people have let go of their personal story. Now that's a mighty move.
Sure it is.
To let go of your personal story, because there's some really
when there's so
big
much story
ones.
behind there, yeah.
Well, I mean,
of
there's
course.
some really tragic big stories out there, right? The minute you let go of your personal story and you get to that place of absolute peace in that zone with your God, with the Holy Spirit, with whatever your beliefs are, you get in that place. And that's the place where the animal can then approach you, because you are godly just like it is.
And pure of thought.
Absolutely.
And
They
I don't-
pick up fear. They pick up fear.
I don't think animals have malice innately. They obviously they have to eat. Obviously, there's that whole thing going on with Darwin and the Galapagos, and we already know that's science. But I think animals normally are gentle and peaceful and in commune with the sun that rises. And I'll say this, and I'll use this as an analogy. Sally and I told you today, we rescued some feral cats that we found two homes, loving home for two of them, and we ended up keeping three of them, which added to the other two, and people think we're crazy, so now we live with 5 cats, or shall I say better, that 5 cats allow us to live with them, because that's how that works with cats. And they don't have, you know, a wristwatch. They're not looking at, like, you know, the digital clock on the bedstand. They're not looking at none of that. But every morning, whether it's 5:58 or 6:01 or 6 o'clock on the nose, all of a sudden, what was a peaceful sleeping chamber becomes a little uproarious with activity. There's a cat jumping over here. There's a cat scratching over there. And they're just letting us know, you know, it's about that time. And there's no marker. There's no, like, okay, the rooster is crowing, so must be time to get up. How do they know that? Well, that's where they operate. That's the frequency with which animals vibrate and operate. It's all instinctive. It's all instinctual. A cat is born. A cat knows how to suckle. A cat knows how to do what it doesn't, and the cat knows how to cover that. Why does a cat cover his thing? Why does a cat cover his stuff, his business? Do you know? I mean, I was told, and it makes perfect sense, because when you're in the wild, the last thing you want is a predator picking up on the scent of what you've just deposited there. So it's camouflage, essentially. They cover their stuff, so that way the other animals who want to eat them don't know that they're there. That makes sense. But my point is, and I'm rambling, right? But my point is this, JAYLEE. Why do they know that? How do they know that? I mean, I would have to be taught that. You know what I mean? I'd have to be taught to do that. So I think that it's special when we can get to that place where we have that kind of communication with the animals, certainly, but with people, because that's where it comes in that it gets really weird. We have our preconceptions, we have our prejudices,
our judgments,
and all of that is laid over on top of everything. You know, Pope Francis was just here recently, and he alluded to the Golden Rule. And the Golden Rule is so simple, you know, just treat others the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And if you just kind of start from there, it seems like it should be okay, right? It can't be any more complicated than that, can it?
Well, I'll probably even make it a bit simpler. When we look in front of the mirror, when we wear a frown, the mirror shows us the frown. When we have a smile, the mirror shows us the smile. No amount of manipulation on the mirror will change it if you don't change this first. So every single human being can be a mirror for us. Now, if I want to see divinity or that beauty in people, I've got to be able to see it in me first, because there's my mirror. If I don't change in here, I cannot change out there. So we just got to remind people of who they truly are. But we have to know it before we can even remind them.
That's perfect. And it is simple. And Michael Jackson was right. It does start with the man in the mirror. Oh, that's your first Michael Jackson reference of the night, boys and girls, and I don't have my bell to ring. I'll tell you what. But I get it. I get what you're saying. And I've always tried to be that person. I think that's in great part why I succeeded without ever getting arrested or being in the Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer on CNN after 30 years of being a flight attendant, because in that environment where people are constantly testing you and constantly pushing you to your limits, I was always able to defuse the situation, because I understood inherently that you cannot be laughing and angry at the same time. Your body physiologically will not allow you to do that. Those two emotions are diametrically opposed.
Yes.
So I'm in there trying to make you laugh and make you smile, because I don't want you pissed off, because that's no place for you to be on an airplane with 300 other people. No. So I've always kind of gone through my life like that. You know, that's how joy and laughter and innocence and fun with a capital F. So what you're doing is you're telling us it's okay to have those things. It's okay to be who you are. But come at it from the right position. Come at it from the, you know, it's all about gentle, be nice,
well, really,
smile, lift your spirit, and that will come back to you.
And any words and any actions have to come from a place of conviction. And how do you have a place? Because that's where power is, right? Mm-hmm. That place of conviction.
Authenticity.
Well, how do you have that other than you're there, you've tasted it, you've touched it, you've lived it? It's the only place of power to come from. The minute you see people coming from a place that they've never touched, tasted, or lived, you can hear it. It becomes watered down. It becomes something that doesn't draw you, doesn't attract you. Mm-hmm. So the safest place to be is to have your feet on a rock. That's your authentic place where you come from, that you live what you breathe, what you walk. And it's the only way to be. And if the size of yours is only the size of a teaspoon, that's beautiful, because you're still standing on something authentic. Even if a next person's the size of what they have to stand on because of their life experience is the size of this table, it doesn't make a difference. Stand on what you know, what convicts you, what brings you that joy in your heart, and always come from that place.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first in the Tampa Native Show. I have, this has been one of those wonderful Tampa Native shows where we've learned, we've laughed a little bit tonight, but we've also come away with a whole profound appreciation for the simplicity of how to be. Right, JAYLEE?
Yeah.
And how to be. And I think if I hear you, JAYLEE, it's if it ain't real, if it ain't authentic, it's not going to make nobody happy, starting with you.
Yeah. Your world can be surrounded by people who are unhappy. But if you're being happy, that's all that matters. Because eventually that flows out. Eventually that touches them.
You change their
slowly,
energy.
one by one they change.
You change their energy.
But it starts with you. And we find ourselves, and we're taught and brought up that we've got to go and find happiness, peace, and solidarity and completeness from other people. Here's where it lies, and here's where it sits. You know, the funny thing is, the minute you find that solidarity, that peace, that completeness, that's the type of people you'll actually attract in your life.
Law of attraction.
And then you're all being that same way, and that just reinforces itself and takes you to a whole other level.
That's where the magic happens, when the links start to make a chain.
Right.
And then the chain becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. And
Synchronicity.
I think that's where we're going. I believe it. And listen, we've gotten to this point here in our history, global, and then of course if you want to drill down just the U.S. alone, it's been tumultuous, it's not been pretty at times, it's been rather nasty at times. But this is a new time now, and I think people are ready for something new. You know, we're ready for, you know, okay, yeah, it's fun to watch the TV with the high def and the colors, and it's, oh my God, it's amazing. But that's a lot of distraction too. So you got to be able to go to another place where you can center it up, understand. And I think just at the, you know, when you start your day and when you end your day, be nice and be thankful. Because abundance, I think, and happiness, and that wellspring you talked about in the beginning of the show, that's that law of attraction thing. That's that abundance thing. You know, you want this, you want that. Well, just, you know, work towards that. Change your energy. Postulate those thoughts. It ain't going to rain today. It's not going to rain today. Not going to rain today. Well, it might rain, but it's not raining where I'm at. You see what I mean?
Well, you know how I start every day of my life? Before I actually open my eyes and I become aware that I'm actually awake and I'm in the world, I give a 2 to 5 or 10-minute prayer, meditation, contemplation. And I direct my thoughts towards the day and the outcome that I want for my life. Just by making that one move, I'm standing in authority and acting as an ambassador for my life. Because most people wake up, they run into the day rushes at them, they become the victims of their day. You've got to start your day that
Ownership.
You own it.
Ownership.
And you'll be so surprised when you get fluid with that action and fluid with that discipline, your world starts to transform and things start to happen beautifully, magically, and wonderfully timed. And you'll actually start to see that you actually do have a say in how your day goes. And you can avoid a lot of the calamities and collisions that are programmed to come in and take you off guard, you know?
I'm willing to bet, I'm just willing to bet that once you get to that point, that first cup of tea and that first cup of coffee even tastes better.
Yes.
Can we tell everybody where they might be able to get Tomas of Terra? I mean, aside from Saturday, one lucky winner, where might they be able to get? Is there a website that we can certainly direct people to?
Sure, we can get it at www.tomasofterra.com.
That's easy enough, and Becky can probably type that in there and put it on our screen in just a minute. TomasofTerra.com. If you feel compelled to put the www in there, please do. But TomasofTerra.com.
And it's on Facebook as well.
Facebook, Tomas of Terra, forgive me, Tomas of Terra Mysteries is the Facebook page. So let's go to the Facebook page after the show, not now, we're not done yet, and let's drive those numbers up, okay? Because that page has only been up for a few weeks, maybe 3 weeks. So let's see if we can get a few likes going there. Please come by and see us on Saturday. We'd love to meet you in person. And I know that JAYLEE will be there to answer your questions, which I'm sure you have had over the last hour. JAYLEE, tell us a little bit about Tomas Says. We know a little bit about what Simon says. We don't care about Simon. He's yesterday. Tell us about Tomas Says.
Well, you know, the train thought behind Simon Says would always say, well, touch this part, touch your head, touch your shoulder, touch an elbow, touch whatever. Well, Thomas is of the mindset where Thomas wants to touch your mind and Thomas wants to touch your heart. So it's a whole other train of thought. So we have released and we're working with it diligently now that we're bringing forth a lot of the things in the book that appeal to this new kind of human that we can all become. And, well, Tomas says we can create a whole new world if we learn to work together and we learn to have respect for every creature, critter, tree, person that there is in the planet. It's the first place to start. So Tomas says, let's do it.
And it starts with?
Me.
That's right. Isn't that lovely? And it's simple. It really, really is. You change your energy. I mean, we've all had that experience where things are just going calamity. You mentioned that word earlier, calamitous. You know, it's, oh my God. And then you stub your toe, and then, you know, you can't find your glasses, and then all of that happens because you're bringing all of that negative and that angst to you. If you can settle, clear your mind, still your mind.
Yeah. And it may be difficult for people to really believe it in the beginning. You know, we have doubts in that. But all I can say is give it a go. Try one morning. Set your day. Determine your day. Say what you want. I want joy this day. I want peace this day. I want that interview to go well. Because God of the universe likes the details. Bring them in. Enhance your cup of coffee. Heal the dog. Do whatever you need to do. It's going to take a little bit of exercise. It's going to take a little bit of focus and fine-tuning, like every good artisan has to go through the craft, right, or go through the movement.
Sure.
And you'll see the results. They are there very quickly.
And they're tangible.
And they're tangible.
This isn't something that we're describing to you that's somewhere out there that's unattainable.
No.
These are things that are attainable by virtue of...
And you're in control of.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
JAYLEE, thanks so much for being here today. We got about 2 minutes left. Is there anything that you'd like to say to our audience before we get out of here? Invite them to come on Saturday. Let them hear it from you. Tell them, look right into that camera and tell them to come see us on Saturday.
Well, you know, I'd love to see your faces there, and I'd love to meet some of you really, really, or all of you personally. Obviously, I'm open to a whole lot of questions. Maybe some of you have got some really deep questions or personal questions, and I am there, and I'm willing to answer anything that I can. I'm just a person who comes from Africa, who lives in Australia, but I've gone through a lot in life. I've had some really great teachers, and I think the greatest thing about it is let's have fun and enjoy. Let's go and meet new people and, have a ball.
Raise your glass with me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to thank you so much for indulging us tonight and for being with us. This has been a very, very special Tampa Native show. We'll be here again next week. Next week at 7 o'clock. With a very special guest, somebody you're going to want to be here. His name is Marty Fleischman. Yeah, Salty Saul's son will be here next week, and we're going to be talking all about being Salty Saul's son as well as his experience. 41 years he worked at World High Line. Let me just say, on behalf of everyone that puts this show together, especially my new best friend, JAYLEE, grab that mug right there, JAYLEE. Salud and happy days. We love you, Tampa.
Thank you.
See you next week. Thank you, JAYLEE.
Back when we were younger and everything seemed new, we used to have a lot of fun, yes we did, no matter what we do. Sleepy days, long summer nights, going anywhere we please, with love that I could call my own, love that I've always known, the city that I call my home, a home from which I never roam. This love affair was meant to be. I love her and she loves me. I remember Tampa, oh, she remembers me. She remembers me. I remember, yeah, yes I do. Oh, I remember, yeah, me and you. I'm a Tampa native, Tampa native, can't you see? I will share my story with you to preserve its history.
Don't forget, Thursdays, 7 p.m. on TBCN, home of the Tampa Native Show.